The scalar product of two vectors. The scalar product of two vectors is also known as the dot product or inner product. If the vector A is v1, v2, v3, and the vector B is w1, w2, w3, the scalar product of A and B is defined as A dot B is v1, w1 plus v2, w2 plus v3, w3. So it's just like you're used to in two-dimensional vectors, but just with an extra component. We multiply the I components, the j components, and the k components, and then we add them together. Any two vectors can be translated so that they emanate from the same point. The angle at the point where they emanate is the angle between the two vectors. It's often not an important point in questions and so on, but the idea is that we have a point and the two vectors come out of it, as we can see in the diagram here, and the angle between them is as shown. If we have a situation where at a point one vector goes in and the other vector goes out, then strictly speaking the angle here is not the angle between the vectors. But you can move that vector, you can translate it so that it comes out here, and now they emanate from the same point, and that's the angle between them. Though to be honest, in most questions they ask for the acute angle anyway. It should be clear that if the vectors are not perpendicular, then you are going to get one of those angles being acute and one of them being obtuse. If the angle between the two vectors, A and B, is theta, then A dot B is the magnitude of A times the magnitude of B times the cosine of the angle between the vectors. So A dot B is the scalar product or dot product between two vectors. Mod A is the magnitude of the first vector, vector A. Mod B is the magnitude of the second vector, vector B. And the theta is the angle between the two vectors, as we can see in the diagram. The scalar product can then be used to determine the angle between two vectors. And that's because we can rearrange this to give us cos theta is A dot B divided by mod A mod B. And if we have the information like this to calculate the top, then we know everything on the right hand side, can calculate cos theta and then get theta. An important point is that since the cosine of pi by 2 radians, or 90 degrees, is 0, A dot B is 0 if the vectors A and B are perpendicular. Now, this is an important point and can be used in both directions. So we've got the A dot B is equal to 0. So A dot B equals 0 tells us that these vectors are perpendicular. And if we know the vectors are perpendicular, then we know that A dot B will be 0.